The coaching carousel is officially underway, and it has been for a few teams already, but Black Monday starts early for Jerod Mayo as the New England Patriots have not wasted any time. Less than 2 hours after the Patriots season finale, a win, by the way, which costed the Patriots the number one overall pick. The Patriots are firing Jerod Mayo after one season. He is out, finishes his lone season as the Patriots head coach at 4-13. A lot of buzz, a lot of speculation. Mike Vrabel, anyone? Vrabel to New England in 3, 2, 1. Definitely feels like that's coming. He changed his Twitter profile pic yesterday to himself as a player with the Patriots, which, by the way, if he ends up getting this job, feels like there might have been some tampering going on here. We'll see if the league steps in or anything, because the Patriots can't just hire Mike Vrabel. They do have to comply with the Rooney Rule. They have to interview 2 external minority candidates, so we'll see if and when that takes place. But the early chatter and the early belief is that Vrabel to New England feels very, very likely. And look, on the surface, that feels kind of like a no-brainer, right? Proven head coach. He's been a player in that organization, got enshrined in the Ring of Honor last year. It certainly would make sense for everyone involved if Mike Vrabel became the head coach. Did they need to fire Jerod an hour after the game? I don't know. But certainly it felt like this decision was made before today to go ahead and move on from him. And obviously they're at a critical point in their franchise right now. They feel like they have a franchise quarterback in Drake May, but they have a lot of roster building to go. Mayo seemed in over his head at times this year. Offensive coordinator Alex Van Pelt was certainly not going to be the answer. So now Vrabel likely going to get that job, I would say. He's got to build the right staff, and they got to get a lot more talent in there, because I don't think they're super close in terms of competing with the personnel that they currently have. So Jerod Mayo's out, which means the Patriots need a new head coach. They had a head coach for over 20 years. Then they had Jerod Mayo for 1 year. Now they'll have another coach. Kind of crazy how that works. All right, coming up next, I will predict which other NFL head coaches are set to get fired. But before we get to that, listen, perfect time to subscribe to 4Verts. We got the college football playoff semifinals. We're going to have a watch party Thursday night, by the way. Notre Dame, Penn State, join us for that. NFL playoff coverage, coaching search updates, news and rumors every single day. We're just getting started here. Let's get to 6,000 subs here on 4Verts. We're like 400 subscribers away. Subscribe for free. We've got you guys covered. All right, so coming up next here in just a moment, as there are 4 open jobs, Bears, Saints, Jets, and Patriots. What I'm going to do now is predict which other jobs open up. So I got 6 other coaching candidates, 4 already open. I'll go 6 more, potentially opening up 10 jobs or so. What other jobs are going to open up? Let's start with the Jags. I feel pretty safe about this one. I do think Doug Pederson gets fired. The latest reporting heavily suggests that the Jags are going to fire Doug Pederson and likely general manager Trent Baalke as well. There's been some chatter that Ben Johnson could be intrigued in that job between them and Chicago, probably, for the Lions offensive coordinator, on where he's going to end up. Speaking of the Lions, big game with the Vikings tonight. And that's important for teams who want to interview Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn, or Brian Flores, by the way. The winner of that game tonight on Sunday Night Football, you can interview coaches from that staff virtually starting tomorrow, because they have a bye in the first round of the playoffs. The loser has a game next week, so you can't interview them until after the wild card round. But the winner tonight, you can interview assistant coaches right away. So keep an eye on that, depending on who gets who wins and who loses that game. I think Peterson's out. I think Baalke's out. I think the Jags are going to go through a full reset. I think it makes sense for them. They obviously got to find someone that they believe can maximize Trevor Lawrence, and getting a guy like Ben Johnson would certainly make a lot of sense for Jacksonville if they're able to do it. The Bears will be in there as well, obviously. Okay, Kevin Stefanski. I think he's back. He fired his offensive coordinator, Ken Dorsey, today, offensive line coach as well. I don't think he'd be allowed to be making those decisions if they weren't going to bring him back. It was reported, in November that he would be back next year. I think the Browns look at this situation that it's not Stefanski's fault, this whole Deshaun Watson debacle. So This is a guy who's led the Browns to 2 playoff appearances. He's won a playoff game with the Browns, which is not an easy team to coach for. I think he's done a pretty good job overall. He'll be on the hot seat entering next year. They got to figure out, is Watson the guy? Do they sign Kirk Cousins? They ended up with the number 2 pick. Do they draft a quarterback? So big decisions coming. I don't think they're going to add another big decision in terms of picking a head coach. I think they're going to fire Kevin Stefanski and go in a new direction. That is my belief. Or keep Kevin Stefanski and not go in a new direction. But the direction at quarterback is the one they have to figure out. Okay, Brian Daboll. This is the toughest one to figure out. I think the Giants are really tough to read right now with these decisions coming because there's been mixed reporting. Some say Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen are going to be back. Adam Schefter hinted as much today in his reporting. Some suggest both are going to be fired. Some have said Schoen will return and Daboll will be fired. I think they're going to end up firing him. Now, we saw this a few years ago with Joe Judge in New York. The initial reporting that was that he was going to be back, and then like 3 days after Black Monday, they fired Joe Judge. So John Mara is going to be thorough. I think he's going to do a full review of this situation, do exit interviews with all these guys, and then make a decision Tuesday or Wednesday. I don't think we get a Black Monday firing for Brian Daboll. That's my prediction right now. But I think in the end, they have the number 3 pick. They're likely going to draft a quarterback. I think they're going to opt for a reset because if you keep these guys, draft a quarterback, and it doesn't go well next year, well, you kind of have to give them another year. So I think they're going to pivot. I could see him staying. This one's tough to figure out, but I'm going to go with they get fired, especially Brian Daboll. We'll see on Schoen. I think if Daboll's out, Schoen should be out. To me, they're a tandem, but we'll see how John Mara handles it. I'm going to predict a firing here. I think Mike McCarthy will be back in Dallas. Now, he's got a different caveat than the rest of these guys in the fact that his contract expires January 14th. So what does that mean? Well, for one, every other coach on this list is under contract through next year, so that would be a true firing. Technically here, if McCarthy's not back, it wouldn't be a firing. They would just be letting him go. End result is the same, obviously. But also what that January 14th contract status does is if other teams want to interview McCarthy, Jerry Jones does not have to allow that until the 14th. He can block interview requests. So I think the Cowboys are going to be thorough over the next 3 to 5 days, review everything, and then decide if they want to bring back McCarthy. And obviously if they do, McCarthy has to agree. He could say no and just hit the open market January 14th. I would imagine if Jerry wants him back and offers him a new contract, he'll return because if he leaves, there's no guarantee he'll get another job. But like the Giants, this one could drag out a little bit more. I'll be curious to see because the Cowboys could also allow Mike to interview elsewhere. They could forego the 14th kind of control and let him interview elsewhere, then ultimately decide if they want to bring him back. I think the job he did this year to be competitive with Cooper Rush, they had injuries everywhere. I think he'll be back. I could see it going the other way, but I think ultimately Jerry would rather keep Mike, and I think he ends up doing that. Okay, Antonio Pierce. I think he gets fired. They're about to lose today, so they'll finish 4-13. Now, the one caveat here is a lot of people thought with Tom Brady a minority owner now for the Raiders that he was going to push for Mike Vrabel and try to get him there. Well, if Vrabel goes to New England, which I think most people think is going to happen now, could they just keep Antonio Pierce? Could they say, well, we don't love the rest of this crop, we're just going to run it back? They could. They've obviously had a lot of quick trigger pulls on these coaches in recent years. I still think they're going to fire him. Antonio Pierce seems in over his head most of the time. They need a new direction at head coach and quarterback. We'll see who their quarterback is. They'll be picking somewhere between 5 and 10, depending on how the rest of the results hold here in Week 18. But I just don't think in a division with Andy Reid, Jim Harbaugh, and Sean Payton, you can go to war with Antonio Pierce and think you have a real shot. I think they pivot. I think they go in a new direction. Who do they go after if they can't get Vrabel? I would imagine they still try to get an interview with him, try to convince him. But I do think Vrabel ends up in New England. All right, lastly, Brian Callahan. There's been some chatter he could be one and done. I don't think they'll do that. The Titans landed the number 1 pick. I think they're going to let him and GM Rand Carthen select a quarterback number 1 overall and try to get this thing on the right direction. One and dones don't happen a ton. Obviously, we just saw it with Jerod Mayo, but The Titans had a bunch of weird games this year where Will Levis was just pissing games away. I think they're going to allow him to get the opportunity to get a quarterback. There's an early rumor that they really like Cam Ward out of Miami, so we'll see if they bring him in there. But I think Callahan is back. I'll throw one more honorable mention. The Bengals aren't going to make the playoffs because the Broncos are beating the Chiefs here, so they'll get the final spot. But I think Zach Taylor's back. They won 5 in a row. They made a playoff push. Didn't get there, but I think they'll run it back with Zach Taylor, just like I think the Titans will run it back with Brian Callahan. All right. Before we get out of here, your time to weigh in. There's already 4 open jobs. How many total will there be? Based on my guesses here, I had Pederson getting fired, Doug Pederson, that's 5. Daboll getting fired, that's 6. Antonio Pierce getting fired, that's 7. So I'm predicting 7 job openings. How many do you think end up opening up? I would guess somewhere between 6 and 8. Let us know in the comment section down below. And don't forget to subscribe on the way out either. Our coverage is just beginning here on 4 Verts. Might have a video tonight after Lions-Vikings as well, a little playoff picture update, so be on the look for that. My name is Harrison Graham. We will see you guys soon.